This is literally a fountain of pure water that comes up out of the ground. This is, the water is cold. It is just beautiful. It looks like glacier water. And in fact, you can see in this video footage and also in the photos that it has kind of a counter current as it comes out, that it sweeps back around towards where it comes out, and there's just a beautiful place there that would be so amazing to do baptisms in. Okay. The amount of water that comes
Very
out
cold.
of this is between 152 million gallons to 840 million gallons per day. I've seen other reports that indicate 1.2 billion gallons in a day. That is enough to fill about 12 stadiums, football stadiums, full of water in a single day. That's how much water comes out of Big Spring, and it is
Wakulla
absolutely
Springs
a
is
gorgeous site.
Very
It
similar.
Very
is,
big, too.
again, this is a proposed site for the Waters of Mormon. There are indications, for example, ancient steps that go up that have the appearance of being very ancient, and so people were coming down into this area and
I think there's
using
no
this
doubt
area
that these
for
places were
a long
sacred
period of time.
places.
Oh,
As you
yeah,
can see here,
absolutely.
stones
In the
that
Book of
are
Mormon
there
This just
that
isn't
have
the
actually
Waters
been
of
worn
Mormon.
down
Right.
by the number of feet that have
Big-time
gone up
Native
and down these
American area.
stairs. And there's no mortar in these stairs. Just the rocks were set there. A little bit after this, Alma is discovered by King Noah and his army, and so they need to leave this proposed Waters of Mormon site. So in Mosiah 23, verses 2 and 3, it says, "And the Lord did strengthen them, and the people of King Noah could not overtake them to destroy them, and they fled 8 days' journey into the wilderness." So if they left this proposed Waters of Mormon site and went 8 days, now they were trying to make it to the land of Zarahemla, and they knew that Zarahemla was to the north, and so if they did that, they traveled 8 days, that would give them enough time to cross over from the southern side of the Ozark Mountains to the northern side. In Mosiah 23, verse 19, it says, "And it came to pass that they began to prosper exceedingly in the land, and they called this land Helam." Helam may have been on the north side of the Ozark Mountains, and of course it was a nice place. And here are some photos of this general area. Lots of rivers and streams, a beautiful place to live. And again, this would be on the slope going towards Zarahemla. Mosiah chapter 24, verses 24 and 25 talk about that they left Helam and they ended up in Zarahemla. It says, "It came to pass that they departed out of the valley, and they took their journey into the wilderness, and after they had been in the wilderness for 12 days, they arrived in the land of Zarahemla, and King Mosiah did also receive them with joy." They left the land of Helam and went 12 days into the wilderness to the land of Zarahemla. Now let's just take a look here at the travel times and distances that would have been required to do this. Now, the number of travel days that we have from Mormon to Helam were 8 days. From Helam to Zarahemla was 12 days. This makes a total travel time of 20 days. As a comparison, if we use Zion's Camp March, which was on similar terrain going through the same general area, was about 1,000 miles in 60 days. So you take 1,000 miles divided by 60 days is about 16.67 miles per day. The distance from Big Springs, Missouri, to Zarahemla at Nauvoo, Illinois, is 320 miles by road. And that's not straight line. That's actually following the curvatures and going around the mountains when you need to. 320 miles divided by the 20 days of total travel time is 16 miles per day.
But
A near exact match with the rate and the march, the speed that Zion's Camp actually did the same terrain.
a couple things.
Could be
And
even
shorter than that.
Yes,
if
the
you're going
20
straight
days
from
doesn't have to be 24
Chattanooga.
hours a day. It's probably more like 12 to 15 hours a day.
Well,
Because they wouldn't travel at night.
Well, right, but
And-
that's just saying that Zion's Camp did
I
about 16
know.
miles per day.
But
That
we
was
don't
just
believe
30
it's
day.
over here in the Ozarks now. It's more right here in
So you're
Helam.
coming up the Tennessee River,
Right, and it's
following up that
Helam
direction.
and
Even
Amulon
shorter.
is right here. And they would go, and this isn't direct, they're going against rivers. See these rivers that go out around? They're going against them here, but maybe they
Well,
could
they're
be
going
on
with the
river.
rivers. These rivers are flowing north up here.
That's right.
And then they wouldn't be going against the Mississippi River as they came up that
Right.
direction.
So we think it's more likely this area is probably where Alma went into. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So again, this basically was some research that I had done that seemed to
absolutely
work out, but things change.
It seemed great. I know.
We have to be open to different new information. Okay, let's keep going. Certainly, the people of back in the Book of Mormon time had a little more motivation because they had an army of people who were trying to come and kill them, whereas Zion's camp were going into they were heading towards a potential battle, so they would have been a little less excited about getting there. This also may explain a couple of things that were hard for me to understand in Mosiah chapter 8 verses 7 and 8. It says, "And the king said unto him, I caused that 43 of my people should take a journey into the wilderness, that thereby they might find the land of Zarahemla." So this is when the Nephites were in bondage to the Lamanites in the land of Nephi, and they were trying to get a way out, to get out from under this bondage. If they were in the land of Nephi, which is in Tennessee, in this proposed geography, and then they needed to find Zarahemla, the most logical way to do that would be to go to the river, to the Mississippi River, and follow it up to the north until they came to the land of Zarahemla, which would have been on the west side of the river, up by where present-day Nauvoo is. But when they left, they ended up getting lost. They were lost for the space of many days, yet they were diligent. They found not the land of Zarahemla, but they returned to this land, having traveled in a land among many waters. If they got lost, how did they know how to get back? You see, if you're really lost, how do you know where to even begin to go back? Well, this would be a very simple answer if we were following the rivers. You see, if they went over to the Mississippi River, began to follow it up, and instead of taking the Mississippi side and continuing up to the west, if they took the Ohio and continued up to the north and to the east, then they would take the Ohio River up to basically the bottom of the Great Lakes area, or right into the area around Lake Erie. Now, it's also not a lot of people know about this, but there is actually a what they call Portage Road. There is a river you can take up the Mississippi to the Ohio River off to the eastern side, and then take the Ohio River up to, I believe it's the Muskegon River, and then that one goes up. There's a tributary of that, and that you could take a canoe up, and there's one portage of, I believe it's 7 miles. If you carry your canoe 7 miles, you can put it into a river on the other side of this ridge, and then you end up going right into Lake Erie. So literally, you could take a canoe from the Gulf of Mexico, and with one portage of about 7 miles, you could be into Lake Erie, which of course then you could go anywhere up into the other Great Lakes. So that's another interesting idea. But these people, actually, if anybody is interested in this, there's a book that was written by a guy who actually took a birch bark canoe and actually did this. He actually went from the Great Lakes. It's called Voyage of the Paper Canoe, and he actually did this. He went from the Great Lakes, he went into a river, he did that portage right here. It came out then into the I think it was the Muskegon.
Yeah. That's off the Ohio. That's up there.
It's way up there, but it goes up that direction towards that, and then as they follow it down to the Ohio, he then followed it all the way down to the Mississippi, which went all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico. Then he paddled his canoe around Florida.
I didn't know about that. What's his name?
Yeah. I don't remember his name now. I've got his book here.
I would love to find that after the broadcast.
It's really fascinating book how he was able to do that, and that actually is one of the things that makes America such a formidable country, because it's one of the only nations in the world that has an internal system where you can actually do tremendous amounts of shipping, which to this very day still happens. And access to both of the major oceans of the world, the Atlantic and the Pacific Oceans.
And the Michigan copper went down the Mississippi all the time. We know that. I want to say this. On my map book, page 42, if you want to find out about Limhi's 43 explorers, okay, what we think is most likely is here's the land of Nephi, city Nephi.
Yeah, I'm going to point this out while you do that. So.
And
They're here.
More than likely, Limhi was looking for Zarahemla up here. And they went up the Tennessee River, and instead of going to the Mississippi, they took the turn here to the Ohio.
Okay, listen to this. This will be interesting. So
Okay.
let's just say that you're going to give them directions.
Okay.
And you've got a piece of birch bark, and you scroll and you write on the birch bark, and you say, okay, so what you got to do here is you got to go up. You got to follow the Tennessee River up to the north. Then you're going to make a left-hand turn.
Right.
And then you're going to have to make an immediate right-hand turn. And then you go all the way up, and you just follow that all the way up until you get to Zarahemla.
And that
So
makes
basically
sense. But
you have a left and a right turn that are the critical ones. Problem is that these rivers are so big, it's hard to tell which ones are which. If they made the left-hand turn right here, where the Tennessee comes up and it goes left, and they thought, well, maybe that's the left-hand turn they're talking about, then they make a right-hand turn, and instead of going on the Mississippi, they go up the Ohio.
yes, all the
And then
way
they follow the
to
Ohio all the way up here until they find
the area where they found the Jaredite plates
and the plates.
and the bones and the breastplates. And that's how Limhi's 43.
And by that time, they knew they were lost.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
So they went back without going all the way to
So all they had to do to get back was just follow the rivers back down, all the way down here until we get to this point, and there would be some marker or something right there. They say, okay, turn left here. You turn left. They follow the Tennessee River back down here, and pretty soon they're back in the land of Nephi.
And then let me add an additional thing. On page 40 in my map book, it's Ammon 16. Now remember, Ammon was living up here in Zarahemla. He was a Hebrew, and we know that by reading the scripture. I'm not going to show that right now, but he was a Hebrew, and he went back to the land to try to find his original people in this area, which would be land Nephi, Lehi. Now, I know it's not all coming together what I'm trying to say yet, but Ammon took his 16 from Zarahemla down, and he came to this, according to Moroni's America and Jonathan Neville's book. More than likely, he could have gone this way at the Cumberland, but he went down the Tennessee, and his route normally would be like this, down the Tennessee, right into Chattanooga. But he's thinking that Ammon took either this route off this river, or this route.
People might be listening.
I'm sorry.
On the radio.
They went down the Tennessee, and they went past the either on the Cumberland and down the Caney Fork, or they took the Tennessee down to Duck River, or they took the Tennessee to the Elk River, and that would all bypass Chattanooga by a little. So this area, they would have been lost in here. And this is where they were captured and turned into the people of, was it Shiloh at that point? Yeah. So this route on page 40 really tells that story well.
Yeah, and that again, it's kind of fun because we're kind of getting into the weeds, but it's so fun to be able to actually get right into some of the nitty gritty of the Book of Mormon and be able to say, oh, that makes sense because of this, this, and this. Okay. Let's keep going here. We got to finish this up.
People didn't have any problem with returning if they followed the river up and they found this land among many waters, and then they realized, well, this isn't Zarahemla, so they could have just turned around and followed the river right back down to the land of Nephi. In Helaman chapter 3, verse 3 and 4, there was an exceedingly great many who departed out of the land of Zarahemla, went forth unto the land northward to inherit the land. And they did travel to an exceedingly great distance, again to the north, insomuch that they came to large bodies of water and many rivers. Does that not describe the Great Lakes area of the United States and Canada? Now let's talk a little bit about up and down directions. It seems that there are directional words like up and down in the Book of Mormon that may involve changes in elevation, possibly in relation to the river. The land of Nephi, possibly located in the southern foothills of the Appalachian Mountain Range, which is the area of the Great Smoky Mountains, also known as the Cumberland Plateau. This Blue Ridge area has an average elevation of about 5,000 feet. Thus, when coming from the river,
a traveler must of necessity go up to the land of Nephi, as it is indicated in the Book of Mormon. Here's a couple of the scriptures. Mosiah 20:7 says, "Therefore they sent their armies forth, yea, even the king himself went before his people, and they went up to the land of Nephi." Alma 17:8 talks about them going up into the land of Nephi. If they leave Nephi, then they always go down out of the land of Nephi. And that is consistent throughout the Book of Mormon. And how Joseph Smith could have gotten all of that right if he was writing this book himself
beautiful.
is really more than astounding. It's impossible.
That's still true.
Let's talk about Zarahemla.
This is great.
The land of Zarahemla, which is located across from Nauvoo, Illinois, according to Doctrine and Covenants, section 125. If you follow the Mississippi River up, and if that is, in fact, the Sidon River, then the elevation at Nauvoo is approximately 670 feet above sea level. Now, obviously, they wouldn't have known how many feet above sea level these places were. It doesn't seem that they had that kind of technology, but they could certainly tell how close it was to the level of the river. And of course, Nauvoo and Zarahemla are very close to the river's edge, so they would have been in a lower part, and they would have known that. Thus, when coming from other lands, a traveler would go down to the land of Zarahemla, as indicated in the Book of Mormon in these scriptures in Alma 27:5. Let us gather together this people of the Lord, and let us go down to the land of Zarahemla.
Exactly opposite
And
of
then
what
Alma
Mesoamerica
53:12
did.
says, "And for this cause they were brought down into the land of Zarahemla." When they leave the land of Zarahemla and go someplace, then they go up out of the land of Zarahemla, typically. This is now talking about the final destruction of the Nephites.
Yeah.
Remember when we were talking about the Des Moines Rapids there by Nauvoo, where Zarahemla was across the river from that? This scripture now makes a whole lot more sense. Mormon chapter 1, verse 10. "And it came to pass that the war began to be among them in the borders of Zarahemla by the waters of Sidon." When the Lamanites came with such a huge army as they did in this final battle, they needed to have a place where they could cross the river on foot. And so it would have been necessary for them to have taken Zarahemla first. And in fact, that is exactly what the Book of Mormon states here. Mormon chapter 2, verse 3, "And it came to pass that in the 327th year the Lamanites did come upon us with exceedingly great power, insomuch that they did frighten my armies, therefore they would not fight, and they began to retreat toward the north countries." If they began to retreat up this direction.
This is where I believe is very possible that Zelph could have been the pre-captain of some of the Zarahemla armies before young Mormon. Because Mormon, as this chiasmus, in Mormon 6:6, it talks about Mormon taking his son Mormon, only time the father Mormon is mentioned of Mormon, on a little tour, so to speak, taking back to Zarahemla to begin the war, going back. So the chiasmus is right there. But I think Zelph fits right in that. I think it might be possible Zelph was a captain in about 320 to 350 to 380 AD, just before Mormon was.
Well, we know that's the when it was carbon dated at the Zelph mound, was Jonathan and I talked about it in the Joseph New 2.0. It's fascinating because if they leave from the Zarahemla area, now why would it start there? Because that's where they had to go in order to have a place where they could cross with their armies. If you have an army of say 200,000 or 300,000 or a million people, million men, they can't all cross the river in canoes. You have to go to the place where you can cross, which is the only place you can cross this entire part of the United States. Here is at Zarahemla. So if that's the case, then they would take Zarahemla. Interestingly enough, Zelph was buried right here on the Illinois River. This is the Illinois River coming right here. So you have Zarahemla here. As the Nephites were retreating back towards the north countries, the Lamanites were hot on their heels here, and they caught up with Zelph and killed him.
Which was one of the last battles of the Book of Mormon, according to the Joseph Smith papers.
Because after that, well, that was according to Joseph Smith's vision.
That's right.
That's what that's from. Anyway, and after that, then the Lamanites allowed the Nephites to basically go ahead and accumulate all the people up here in the land of Cumorah. They gave them a couple of years to do that. Remember that?
Yeah.
And then the Lamanites came with their armies, and that's when the final destruction happened. So but this is fascinating. This
It's
last
awesome.
part here was something that hit me so hard because chiasms in the Book of Mormon are really important.
They are.
But I never heard of anybody actually talking about the historical chiasmus, so this is really cool. So let's go ahead and finish this up.
We don't know exactly where they went, but it makes a lot of sense that if they were driven out of the Illinois and the Mississippi River Valley, essentially, that they may have gone over into the Ohio River Valley, where the potential site for the land bountiful may have been. This being the case, it says, and we marched forth and came to the land of Joshua, which was in the borders west by the seashore. Of course, that would have been in the vicinity of the seashore here. In Mormon chapter 2, verse 29, and the Lamanites did give unto us the land northward, yea, even to the narrow passage which led into the land southward. And we did give unto the Lamanites all the land southward. So at this point in time, the Lamanites controlled basically all of the land, except for just a small portion of it way up in the north. And this is where some of the parallelisms are that I think are very, very powerful. If this geography is correct, and we're not saying that we know that this is true because we don't know, Book of Mormon history literally on the same sacred grounds as church history. And note the parallelism here. The final battle talked about that the Lamanites first attacked the Nephites at Zarahemla, from the Mississippi River Valley over into the Ohio River Valley, into the land bountiful. And then they were driven from there up into the lands of the Hill Cumorah, up in western New York. I, like Wayne May and so many others, we're one Cumorah guys. Okay, we think that there's only one Cumorah in the Book of Mormon, and that is the hill in western New York. At that point, the entire Nephite civilization was exterminated. And their records were buried in the hill by the last prophet. Then let's fast forward about 1,400 years. And we have a young boy who is guided and tutored by these ancient prophets and received the plates in a hill in western New York, the Hill Cumorah. Once he received the plates, then a few years after that, where does Joseph Smith go? He goes to the Ohio River Valley, where he and his followers build up a temple in this dispensation, the very first temple where God the Father and Jesus Christ came and accepted that temple. But then a few years later, the saints were driven out of Kirtland. Where did they go? They went to the Mississippi River Valley, where they built up a city out of a swamp, and they called it Joseph's City. And then just a few years after that, what happened to them? You see, they got an extermination order against them. But luckily this time, the Lord has stated that when he established his gospel this time, that it would not fail. And so the Lord led them out of that area over to the Rocky Mountains. But if you take a look at the symbolism and the parallelism, those of you who understand chiasmus can also understand the chiasmic parallelisms between these two civilizations. The one going from the southwest to the northeast, the other moving from the northeast towards the southwest on the same sacred land. Now that makes a lot more sense to me because first off, it's on the promised land. And then the other thing is that look at all the incredible spiritual things that have happened on these lands. This is where everything began with the Garden of Eden and where everything is going to end at Adam-on-Diamond. And they are the same sacred grounds, same sacred lands.
This is a review of some of the evidence that indicates a North American setting for the Book of Mormon. Here is some more of that evidence. Here is more of that evidence. It could go on and on, literally. By the way,
And
that,
it does.
that could be extended now to literally
It could.
hundreds and hundreds of different evidences that,
Yeah.
that are found.
And that land, I want to emphasize, that's the plains of the Nephites. That's the plains of Ola Shania that talked about in D&C 116, the Springs, Spring Hill.
Spring Hill, yeah.
That's the same place as the plains of Nephihah, which I've looked at, which is the same as the plains of Helam, I believe, in the Jaredite record, and Gizla. I can't remember those names, but there's two from the Jaredites. And there's also a place in the Book of Mormon that it's, instead of saying plains of the Nephites, it's either the plains of Melech or the plains of Bountiful. It doesn't say that, but it says in there that they went to the plains and they were fighting between Melech and Bountiful. And Bountiful, the city, was probably somewhere around Newark, Ohio, or Columbus, or somewhere like that. And Melech was up by the bottom of Lake Erie. They were fighting upon the plains of, but they don't name them. I do. That is the most sacred land in the world. It's where Adam was. It's where the Nephites were. It's where the Jaredites died. It's right there. And it's part of my testimony. I know the Book of Mormon is absolutely true by the Spirit, but these evidences move me so powerfully that they confirm that spirit I've already felt for so many years.
Yeah, the Book of Mormon is true spiritually as well as physically. And that's what we're all about here at the Book of Mormon Evidence.org and Firm Foundation, is to show the world these evidences. What you'll find is that the vast majority of these things are not coming from LDS scholars or other LDS people. It's coming from mainstream archaeology. It's coming from mainstream linguistics and DNA and so forth that we're using to do this. And what we have found so far is just nothing short of amazing to me. Although I really didn't have any real doubt that Joseph Smith and had got it right, and I already knew the Book of Mormon was true from a spiritual standpoint. But to have that physical understanding and be able to put that together and say, wow, if the physical part is true, if we can actually show that in a real world setting.
Elder Hall in 2017, the greatness of the evidence comes from the head and the heart, and they verify each other. And to not share evidences that are physical that you have found is worse than anything, according to Elder Holland, almost.
Well, he basically said, you know what, if we have been given evidences and we don't use it, then we are going to be held accountable for not showing forth the evidences of the foundation of our faith.
Read that. August 2017, awesome. Elder Holland.
Actually, watch the video.
Greatness.
The video is even better because actually, Book of Mormon Central, they actually cut out a little part where he gives a shout out to others besides the scholars.
And we think that could be the Heartlanders too.
Well, Jonathan was having correspondences with Elder.
And one last thing I would like to say is there's a new video out that Scripture Central did that is a good effort that I want to tell them that they did a marvelous work, a new series they're doing.
Yeah,
and Kurt Magleby was out at Tennessee showing the Pinson Mounds, which is possible evidence of where the Book of Mormon is. Yeah. Now, they still talk about Mesoamerica. They still talk about other issues, but at least they said it, and I'm hoping that's a huge bone to give us to help them understand.
I'll tell you what, we would love
all
to be
love
able to
each
work
other.
with Scripture Central
and
the scholars there. If we could actually, as a church, get our act together and actually be one. The Lord says, if you're not one, you're not mine, right?
Yeah.
We need to become one, and with the evidences that we have available to give to the world, of the Book of Mormon, with their help and others, we could take the Book of Mormon message to the world in a much greater fashion, and actually have the Book of Mormon take its rightful place in the history of Earth, and especially of the Americas.
This is awesome. Thank
it
you.
has so many answers.
I love going back through your old videos. People, most of you have never seen them. And Rod is so right on now as he was then in most areas generally.
Over the course
and
of
it's
time,
not him, it's the Lord helping to get a truer message as we understand it. Not that it's absolutely without question, but
more
we
verifiable.
feel it so strongly. And this is a mission of love and faith to all of you, that this stuff is full of wonderful truths.
Yeah. So thank you again for taking the time. This has been a long one, but like I said, I'm not known for doing short dives. We do deep dives. we look at everything. We want to make sure that you take a look at these. Make sure you subscribe here. If you're not already subscribed, everybody, I mean, come on, hit that button and subscribe so you can see this. We're going to be doing deep dives on all kinds of different things coming up here, from the ship and the. And I mean, there's so many things that
the
we
earthquake.
have to
We'll
work
even
with.
touch on universal model.
Yes.
There's all kinds of stuff. But also go to bookofmormonevidence.org and sign up for our event. Early bird tickets now for a few more weeks. And it's April 18th, 19th, and 20th.
Seating is limited, by the way. So so get your tickets now while you still can.
And be
also,
a vendor. Come and sell
also,
your books.
if you are following us from other countries and other places in the United States, and you can't make it to the conference, we record everything at the conferences and we put them up on our streaming website, which is now by far the largest, most robust information on the
1,100 videos.
No, 1,500 plus videos.
Is it? Okay.
Now. Yeah.
And it's bookofmormonevidence.org/streaming.
Yeah, or just go to Book of Mormon, or just go to the main website and click on streaming, and you can do that. Right. So go ahead and click that and subscribe again below. That would be fantastic. We are excited about our upcoming things. This is going to be a multi-part series, so we're excited about sharing that with you.
And
Thanks,
I've
everybody.
also got a blog that I do every day about something. Join me.
Yeah.